Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and today we're with author and hermeneuticist Peter Kling, author of How You Can Avoid Armageddon. Did I get the title correct, Peter?
Actually, the correct title now is Letters to Earth.
Letters
The
to
Future
Earth.
is Yours. We
So
did an upgrade.
so it's The Future is.
The future is yours.
Oh, so we're on a positive timeline.
Well, yes, and we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that further.
Oh,
And that was one
good.
of the reasons for the upgrade. Is that it's up to us. Letters to Earth. The future is yours, and you can find it online, Barnes and Noble. We'll talk more about that later on.
Okay.
Amazon.com. Those people.
Okay, great. Now, first of all, I just want to state this is a very short introduction, and then just to set a context, and then we'll turn it over to Peter. And first, we just want to say that we're having technical difficulties, I believe, of an archonic nature or whatever, right?
Be that way. Yes.
And that is, there's outside interference. So we're bringing Peter in. He can phone in, but we can't get a picture on him. So we're getting a picture on him. And that's Peter right there in our last interview. And Peter, are you out in the country? Are you in the city now? Where are your circumstances?
I'm kind of in the best of both worlds.
Okay.
In a remote place, but still on the grid.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're not far from our off the grid project, and I love it here. It's just, but I love where I am. I really do. I created it to begin with, so what's the difference, right? If I don't love what I created, and it's just interesting how things have just worked out, and they've all worked out as I've.
Yeah.
If we can see the future, we can create the future. And we'll talk more about that later on, too. Yes, we are on a positive timeline if we choose to be.
Yeah, and I know that people can stay in touch with you on your Facebook page because in the lead up to this program, you and I had a thread on there that I found really exciting. Do you have a website now that people can go? Or is your Facebook kind of the main interface with?
Well, I always suggest follow me on Facebook because I have difficulty doing anything with updating my website, but I do have a website, and what is updated there are the weekly shows that I do with the Final Countdown. I host the Final Countdown, which is Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Time, regardless. And it's on the Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network that you could find me. So it's latenightinthemidlandsradio.com, and or just look for the Final Countdown. I'm sure you'll find me. But yep, that's kind of what I've been doing. So we still have our project going on, and it's still on a little hiatus because we're working on a slightly different direction. When you sail, you take different tacks.
Oh, sure.
The direction you want to go. So.
Oh, great. Well, I just want to put out an alert to people because the atmosphere out there is so churning and changing and tumultuous that this is a hermeneutics program. It's not a political program. It's a hermeneutics program. It's about interpreting biblical prophecy, and as German Americans, the Kling family and the Weber family, which immigrated to Louisiana early 1700s, the name was changed from W-E-B-E-R to W-E-B-R-E. Right there as you came in, they Frankified it. But my research showed that in the mid-1850s or so, a Kling and a Weber did something in some kind of collaboration that was useful. So we've been doing this for a while, so it's good to meet up with the Kling again and to do something useful in the universal sense, Peter. I just wanted to say that so
Well,
that people have
thank you, Alfred.
some kind of background. Now, also, this is a hermeneutics program, and Peter and I have been continuing this hermeneutics dialogue now for some years. And what kind of brought this particular program into being was the events of the recent summit between the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, and the president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Now, you can say that's a political meeting, but there are always many levels and dimensions to events on our planet, because this is a multidimensional experience. So we're going to be talking about the hermeneutical and the hermeneutics of it. And I'm trying to say that, and I know you're not supposed to say, oh, don't get upset, because that gets you upset, right? But this is specifically to kind of diffuse many of the embedded charges and triggers and derangement syndromes that are around and grew out of this event, okay? And were there before and do thereafter. So you guys who are watching, I know there's a lot of flame wars going on in the comment sections on social media. So this is really about hermeneutics, and it goes back to Isaac Newton. It goes back thousands of years. It goes back to people who had chronovisors and had the technology to look forward in time for a long time and understand what was going on. Nostradamus had his type of chronovisor. I mean, all of them. And so we're scientific here. We're not political. We're not religious. We're looking at the hermeneutics of it, which is scientific. Now, the context, once I saw that, I said, wow, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, this elevated everything palpably into what we call in hermeneutics upper theater. And that is, people are acting, the human individuals, in their archetypal roles, which biblical prophecy, some texts or others, manage to tune into archetypal roles, and then they become embedded in prophecy and in a written text, and they come down through the ages, so that you'll see an archetypal role like King of the East, King of the North, King of the South, Whore-of-Babylon, Antichrist, false prophet. All of these are like archetypal roles, which are a function of how, through certain technology other than, you know, Vatican and DARPA time travel. I mean, it's the Vatican who contracted their chronovisors to DARPA CIA, which then has abused it, in my opinion, the last 50 years to wreck American democracy with their pre-identified president program that put on fraudulent presidential elections, you know, since 1971. And we know that because of very courageous whistleblower, Andy Bishago. Well, prophecy is a type of time travel. And it's very complex because it deals with what people like to call God and experiences God or source in many different interpretations. And we know that there's a science of God, and that God is not only a matter of faith, but you can study God scientifically. One of the last, and I've got all of the programs that we've done with Peter, and it'll blow people's minds, but one of the most interesting one that we did, you know, and it was on the rollout of his wedding when he came to Canada and the US across North America to claim North America. And here's the headline: expert Peter Kling, Prince William is the Antichrist, future king of one world government. And what happened just a few days prior to Vladimir and Donald meeting in Helsinki? Isn't that kind of weird? It's called Helsinki. It's a pun. Well, Israel sent Prince William over to Palestine to act as a peacemaker when we know, according to at least one putative Windsor, that there's hardly any royal blood in Prince William. He's mainly Rothschild. So Peter's going to unravel all of this to us, because we were watching one of his videos and he said the Bible is a need-to-know book. And some people say, oh, the Bible. Well, the Roman emperor funded Flavius Josephus, the chief Israeli propagandist and meme maker at the time, who constructed the four synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John around all the memes of the prophesied Messiah at the time, the Redeemer, and they put together a package story in which only 9 days of Jesus' life appear in the four gospels. And that's a myth around which the Roman emperor morphed as the Pope, and the Zionists of Israel, the synagogue of Satan, have ruled the world ever since. So it's a paradox. But here, to approach that paradox and open it for us with new eyes, is the Einstein of hermeneutics. And Einstein is getting kind of a bad rap now because they say that he covered up the perpendicular universe, not the parallel universe. So I would say an advanced scientist of hermeneutics, Peter Kling. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Alfred. I'm not exactly sure where to start. Let's start with Josephus. Well, we're going to start before Josephus Flavius. 1978, this led up to a personal awakening, but it was due to education that I became more awake. Someone told me that a long time ago, they switched the signs, and everything that was right was now wrong, and everything that was wrong was now right. And I'm thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, okay, that still makes sense today, and more so than ever. Now, let's just take Josephus Flavius for a second. He was actually born in 37 CE, so he didn't experience any time of Jesus actually being alive. So in order for him to do anything, he would have had to take whatever was around at that time, whatever knowledge was around, and then assemble it to write these interesting books, which all correlate with each other in one way or another. But here's the interesting thing. If we go back and we look at the actual dates of the writings of the book, Matthew was written in 41 CE. Mark was written in between 60 and 65 CE. Luke was written in 56 to 58 CE. So yeah, Josephus Flavius may have had some pretty interesting manipulation here going on, but he died. Josephus died at 100 CE. And here's the thing: John wrote the book of John. The Apostle John wrote the book of John in 98. So I don't imagine, and he wrote the book of John on the Isle of Patmos while he was a prisoner of Rome. So now, in order to get that information, which the Gospel of John supports the other three. So in order to get to that information, Flavius would have had to get to the Isle of Patmos and get John's work too. So, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Let's go back to Jesus. Oh, Jesus studied under Buddha. Really? Well, it's believed that Jesus was part of the Essenes, which were a very devout sect of Judaism who didn't talk to Gentiles. Ooh. And Jesus never talked to a Gentile in the recorded Gospels except for the Samaritan woman at the well and her friends. And to them, he revealed that he was indeed the Messiah. But they're the only ones. So, okay, Jesus studied under Buddha. Jesus studied, went around the Mediterranean. The last thing I heard, which was about a month ago, is that Jesus was from the Pleiades. I'm like, boy, he gets around, doesn't he? Alrighty then. In John, it says that Jesus was the Word. And in the Word was, and the Word was God or a God. When we look at what is actually recorded within the scriptures, it breaks down to this word, this entity, Yeshua, who we call Jesus, was essentially an interdimensional contractor that hired the wrong subcontractors to genetically engineer life on Earth. And here we are today. So when we look at I'm going to just digress here a second. I am totally free of dogma and doctrine. I was never indoctrinated into any religious order. I don't carry the dogma of any religious order. For some reason, some very intelligent people decided that they needed to study the scriptures with me at a very early age. And interestingly enough, I grasped the knowledge like a fish swims in water. And it's interesting, we're going to talk about genetics here in a little bit, but it wasn't until 2 years ago that I actually found out a little bit more about my family history. My family history actually, I was able to track it back to the 1500s, the early 1500s. As it turns out, the original family name wasn't Kling. Kling is the sound that a bell makes. We were actually the bell makers, and the original family name was Klingenschmidt. And so we were bell makers. Now in the 1500s, who would be our biggest customer? Maybe the church? Now, the interesting thing is that we were personal friends of Martin Luther. And when Martin Luther exposed the ills of the church, which was essentially the 95 Thesis, if you go read that, it's essentially accusation of extortion by the church of the people. The biggest one is the selling of indulgences, essentially you pay to get out of hell. But they actually took it down right to the local level, to the poorest of the people. And so here you had this poor widow who just barely had enough money to bury her husband. And the church is saying, well, he's stuck in purgatory. You're going to have to sell the farm if you want him to get to heaven. And so the church winds up owning the farm. And so that was what Martin Luther exposed of the church. And we stood with him. And now here's the thing. It was at that time, there were several families that all joined together, and they hid Martin Luther from the church's agents so that he could translate the Bible from Latin into German just in time for it to be printed on the Gutenberg printing press, which then it went into mass production, and the church had to stop burning Bible readers at the stake. That went on until the mid-1500s. So there's a good chance my ancestors, some of them were burned at the stake. So I'm not too fond of religion. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, the Bible's a need-to-know book. And when I decided, when I was taught the scriptures, but it was actually the paradox in my life that formed at the age of 9 when I saw the future and then lived through it. Interestingly enough, October 29th is when that happened, 1965. It scared the heck out of me, and I ran home. It was 9:15 at night. I was out walking the family dog. And I ran home and I told my mother what had happened. And she was washing dishes. She said, "Oh, that's nice, honey. It's time for you to go to bed now." And I was like, "What?" And so because of that one incident, I turned to science to look for answers. My biblical studies, my studies within the scripture, which was primarily history and prophecy and how those prophecies fit together. Because Alfred, as you said, upper theater, that the prophecies in the Hebrew, what we call the Hebrew scriptures, have 3 applications. They have the application against, well, there's several things that are going on here. We have a record, we have prophecies which have application, but they apply to the temple in the 1st century. They apply to the temple, I'm sorry, yeah, they applied to the temple back in 600 BC, before the Babylonians raised Solomon's temple the first time. It applied to the temple in the 1st century that was built by Herod, and then the Romans came in and raised that temple, and it applied to the temple during our day. Wait, temple during our day? There is no temple. There is no temple. Yet. There is one, actually. The Temple of Solomon can be seen in Brazil, a life-size replica. I wonder what it would take to dismantle it and move it over to Israel. Or I bet you they already have it as a shall we call it pre-made and ready to assemble. I bet you it's going to go together quicker than Lego blocks when they get ready to build this. And so there's a lot of things. Yes, upper theater is going on now. We could see that in Helsinki. And everything that we've talked about over the years, Alfred, it's all, now people can see it. Now people can see it. Before it was like, well, I'm not sure. I went back and I looked at the interview that we did on Prince William has had almost 300,000 views, and we did that in 2011. Interesting. And I'll still stand by everything except for the timeline. Why? Because the timeline got fractured in 2012 and 2013 for sure. How do we know that? We have something called the Mandela effect, but not just that. It was finding the God particle. It was CERN opening the pit of the abyss. And the Mandela ritual funeral is evidence of that. Interestingly enough, Mandela was recorded of dying June 26th, 2013. And then all of a sudden he got better. They announced it on the news. Oh, Mandela died. They unplugged him from his life support and he passed away today. Nope. He's better. He went home now. He's home with his family. Amazing how quickly that happened. Yep. They put him on ice until December 5th. And then, oh, Mandela died and the world had a 10-day ritual funeral with a crazy man signing in sign language that nobody understood, claiming he was seeing the stadium filled with angels as he was standing next to Obama. And we find out later that this same crazy guy was guilty of a necktie murder in South Africa. That's where they put a tire around somebody and they set it alight. And so you are burned up by the burning rubber within the tire itself. Nice guy. And you got to stand right next to the President of the United States. Okay, alrighty then. So if you recall, we were also supposed to see the greatest comet a civilization never saw, Comet Ison. And that was destroyed coming around the backside of the sun. Interestingly enough, that would have been the Mayan snake god sign. That would have been perfectly aligned between Earth and Venus on the day after Mandela was put into the ground on the 15th. On the 16th, Comet Ison would have been perfectly aligned between Earth and Venus, and it would have been looking like a big exclamation point in the evening sky. Venus was spectacular at that time. One other thing, the scientists who found the God particle, they received the Nobel Peace Prize for finding it and then confirming it, finding it in 2012 and confirming it in 2013. They got their prize on December 10th, 2013, right smack in the middle of the Mandela ritual funeral. Now, it was reported on Veterans Today that it was during this funeral that an off-planet entity, maybe he came out of CERN, the key that opened up the pit of the abyss, but an off-planet entity signed 91 treaties with 91 countries of this planet. This off-planet entity was named Marduk, M-A-R-D-U-K. Go look it up. Do some research. Find out who Marduk is. And that was the whole reason for the funeral, and that's why we didn't see Quetzalcoatl, the snake god, coming back. That sign was destroyed by, shall we say, off-planet entities? No, maybe on-planet entities. Who knows? Who knows? But that was Mandela's ritual funeral. And if you recall, Alfred, right after that, we got a bloody revolution in Ukraine, which was close to my heart because I was there for the Orange Revolution. That was totally peaceful. I learned just how loving and how nice the Ukrainian people are during the Orange Revolution. And then I saw just how bloody things became during the revolution in 2013, in December there. And then what do we see after that? The false flag Ebola outbreak in Africa. And what did we get right at the beginning of the year? ISIS. The rise of ISIS, just kind of like that emblem, the phoenix coming up out of the emblem that was on the podium at the Mandela funeral, the rising phoenix out of 13 pyramid triangles making one big pyramid. Interesting. Go back. You can look that up on the internet too. Just go back to the Mandela ritual funeral and look at the podium symbol. You got to look at the symbols. The rising phoenix. Interesting. And we get ISIS. Yeah, you see the statues of Isis, Alfred. You know, it's usually Isis as a winged phoenix, right? So, and we love Egyptology. We love the Egyptian gods. But here we have Marduk. So who is Marduk? Let us bring it up to Helsinki. Actually, a little bit before that. The Bible is a need-to-know book, and I figured this out when I set down the guidelines for my scientific research in 1980, when I realized that, or when I actually put my scientific knowledge together with my biblical knowledge and realized that Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 through 23 is a record of genetic engineering. So now who are the genetic engineers? You see, if Earth was genetically engineered, somebody had to do it. As a matter of fact, Earth is only the beginning. There are hundreds of millions of, probably billions of Earth-like planets across the galaxy just waiting for human habitation. We'll get that at the end of the show because the future is ours. Yeah. Yeah, the future is yours. And it's what we make of it. But everything that was recorded in the scriptures, I looked at as, okay, this is something we need to know, even if we do not comprehend what it is. And at the time, this is 1980, this is before we figured out what string theory was, which shows that we live in a 10-dimensional universe and that we are dimensions 8, 9, and 10, which means that there has to be 7 other spatial planes to support these planes, because without those 7 other spatial planes, we could not exist. And then another very important thing, fractal science, the repeating patterns in nature across all the dimensions. Here's a little something that most people have no comprehension of, Alfred. And that is, you know, we all know we started off as a one-cell organism. You know, mommy and daddy had sex, and the egg and the sperm united, and the egg was fertilized, and bang. Well, you know what? Upon that fertilization, what stops any other sperm from coming in is that there's an electronic discharge, just like what happens to create a universe between 2 dimensions, 2 spatial planes, M theory. Once these dimensions touch, there's an electrical discharge which goes across that dimension or set of dimensions, which creates life. And that electrical discharge from event horizon to event horizon takes about 1 trillion Earth years. So we have about 985 billion years to go. Well, remember, it's only the beginning. That's what the scriptures say. In the beginning, God created the heavens. Yep, okay, they're all in place, and the earth. So this is where it starts, right here. It started with the genetic engineers and the fact that we got a bad set of contractors. Well, not really. You see, when we go back and we look at what's recorded within Genesis, we can pretty much, in certain parts of the Bible, we can pretty much figure out that the genetic engineers were creating their own planet and they became their own gods. We've got evidence of this in monuments like the Sphinx, which is dated between 7,000 to 15,000 years ago. They're digging up these old ancient ruins that have no earthly explanation on how people lifted these stones, and we know that from the pyramids. But you look at places like Machu Picchu, and these anomalies where all these stones are shaped and put together on the tops of mountains. What? Huh? And then they start figuring out, oh, wow, this is dated 10,000, 15,000 years ago. And I'm not talking about just Machu Picchu, but different ruins that they're finding all over the earth, but between the Middle East and actually Mesoamerica. And so we're finding that we didn't get the narrative. Academia isn't giving us the correct narrative. And we do have the scriptures, but now, oh, well, the Bible, you know, who believes in the Bible anymore? That's ridiculous. It's superstition. Oh, okay. You believe what you want. The answers are there once we look at it without the dogma, without the doctrine, and through eyes of science. Now, I'm going to go back to human creation. You see, we start off as this one cell little zygote that turns around and goes to 2 cells, it goes to 4 cells, and then all of a sudden we become a living organism. But not just that. You see, every human that's listening to me, you are host to over 100 trillion other life forms. There's at least 64 different species that live within your navel. Hello, God? Do you really think, you know, listen quietly at night. There's probably a couple of bacteria having a discussion whether you really exist or not. So when we think about God or who or what God is, we have to go back to the singularity. We have to go back to the very beginning, and we can find that information within the scriptures too. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Before me there was nothing, and after me there will be nothing. Event horizon to event horizon. Wait a minute. In according to M theory, we're on a 500 million. I'm sorry, we're on a 100 trillion year trip across this stream of time from event horizon to event horizon. So is God the universe? That's a question I proposed to meet Dr. Mikio Kaku when I gave him a copy of Letters to Earth. About a year later, Mikio Kaku found God. He actually found God in tachyons, particles that move faster than the speed of light. In other words, they're instantaneous. So whatever we move around, whatever we touch, whatever, it's a sensory section. It's like a big sensory organ, which goes right back to one big giant computer, quicker than the speed of light. Kind of like our thought, which is instantaneous. Now, Alfred, you said something before I want to touch on. We're all prophets. We can all see the future. Some of us get real good at it. Some of us do what I like to call cosmic surfing, because we can see forward or backward in time in any dimension, any place that we want to look. We just have to know where to go look for the information. It's all there. Time actually doesn't really exist. It's the variable across all the other 10 dimensions. And we know that we're in a time warp right now. What was 24 hours about 30 years ago is now actually closer to 16 hours. What warps time? Mass. Does that mean we have something massive entering our solar system? Could be, especially when people are saying that we have a whole new set of cosmic rays coming in, and that just started recently. Nibiru cometh, the star with the sun with wings. Interesting. We go to Malachi, the 4th chapter, the first, 2nd, and 3rd verse. It says, "The day is coming that is burning like the furnace. And to the presumptuous and the wicked, they will become as chaff, and they will be burned up, and neither root nor bough will be left to them. But to those of you who have faith in my name, or have respect for my name, you will become strong, and like young fattened calves will go forth pouring the ground, and your enemies will become like dust under your feet." So how does one event create 2 different circumstances? To the wicked and the presumptuous, it turns them into chaff and burns them up. But to those who have respect for the name of Yahuwah or Yahweh or Jehovah, they're all different versions of the same singularity. It means he who causes to become, the creator. We have creative powers within us. We are children of the creator if we so choose to be. We carry those genes. If you're listening to this show, chances are you are carrying a dominant load of of the woman's seed, or the woman's genetics, which I'll explain in just a minute. But we're looking at an event, and this is one of 6 different prophecies within the scripture that deals with something happening with the sun. The others talk about the sun being darkened and the moon being turned to blood. So we'll cover more about that later on. We had several discussions about the tetrad blood moons. Do you remember what happened at the end of the tetrad blood moons, Alfred?
Please bring us into that.
In 2015, September, the last of the tetrad blood moons, which was
right.
Rosh Hashanah. Where did we see the Pope? The Jesuit Pope, Catholic canon law, Jesuits can't hold the position of Pope, so why is there an illegal Pope? Where did we see that illegal Pope at the end of September? We saw him in America's holy places. Right? Didn't we see him where? At the White House, the Capitol, Independence Hall? And then we saw the Pope go over and tell the United Nations the same thing he told the American people: adopt and support the post-2015 development agenda, which they did, and the UN General Assembly ended on the last of the tetrad blood moons. Significant. That was Upper Theater, wasn't it? Now, your input, Alfred.
No, I'm following all of the words that all of the events and the meanings that you're bringing to us, especially the meaning of Yahweh Creator, because there are all these embedded double meanings because of, I believe, the Anunnaki intervention and the confusion of the Anunnaki with God in our mind.
You hit the nail on the head. Here's the interesting thing. We had no idea who the Anunnaki were, but we've had the scriptures for 3,500 years. And then all of a sudden, we find out about the Anunnaki texts. And when more and more work is done on the Anunnaki, and all of a sudden, we got a flat earth, and we got Anunnaki believers. We have people who are literally worshiping Anu. I've dealt with them myself. You're worshiping the gods that gave us religion and government. You're worshiping the gods, the extraterrestrials. Let's get this right. You're worshiping the ETs, the extraterrestrials, the God wannabes who gave us religion and government, gave us the hierarchy, who keep us enslaved to this system, to keep us working for them so they can get richer, so they can sacrifice our children to their gods? Seriously? Yeah, where do 8 million children go every year? Let's see, I think the Twilight Zone gave us a good indication on that. To serve man? Yeah. That's a whole nother show waiting there, but we're not going to go down that dark pit today. But just think about that. Where do 8 million children go every year? And human trafficking is the #2 moneymaker on the planet, right behind drugs. And we know how drug addicted America has gotten. It's an epidemic, all related to opium. Who made their money in opium during the opium wars? Think about that. If you don't know the history of the opium wars, go look it up. We're not going to talk about that today. It has nothing to do with hermeneutics. But here's a statement that I mentioned before: we're all prophets, we're all seers. Alfred, have you ever said I knew that was going to happen?
Well, we have this because through the PMIR model, which was in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research in the 1970s. PMIR means psi-mediated instrumental response, and that model, which is supported as a hypothesis by scientific data, is that the accidental meeting that you have with a friend on a street corner, at which valuable information is exchanged, is actually subconsciously, psychically mediated through a vast network, and that human beings are like the tip of a volcano. It's huge. And that's kind of our collective unconscious. And our collective unconscious contains connections to Source and God. And that's what devices like HARP are intended to block: our connection to the universe, the galactic black hole, for example, which is a portal into other parts of the universe, and our universe itself has a portal into other universes in our multiverse. And we now know the multiverse was discovered in 1895 by the American scientist William James, and the omniverse, which is now, and two Stanford scientists have written a paper in which they estimate that the number of universes in our multiverse is 10 to the 7th to the 7th. Now, if you undertook...
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, that is...
Why don't we just make it indefinite? And that's pretty much...
No, wait. I have a mathematician colleague who actually undertook to do the calculations, and if you undertook to write out 10 to the 7th to the 7th in 12-point type, for example, that number itself would be 260 million miles long.
I was going to ask, how many times would it wrap around the Earth?
Oh, no, I mean, don't even think that. It's 260 million miles long.
So we're going to Jupiter on this one, eh?
I mean, we do not have a term in human language for 10 to the 7th to the 7th, and that's the number of universes in our multiverse. And our multiverse is a scientific concept. It's not a matter of faith. And we don't know, that is, scientists say, well, we don't know the name of our universe. Now, if you go to the Urantia book, which is one of these channel texts, it says, oh, our universe is called Uversa. Well, who knows? That's just who the channelers are, right? And there's all kinds of channelers. Is the Bible a channel text, Peter?
Without a doubt it is, yes. And as a matter of fact, so is Letters to Earth. Yeah, something that when I wrote that book, I was in typically alpha. And now let me explain this. You better be an alpha when you're writing, but I would say at least 80% of the time that I would write, especially when I was starting a new segment, I'd always go down to level, into theta, actually go through alpha and into theta and into deep prayer. And I would pray for guidance and direction that I might write down, the things that I needed to get across to people so they could comprehend what I was talking about and explain these words accurately. And it's interesting, in using that method, I would find, I'll give you a great example. And this is all part of what I had learned in 1978 when, and I don't mind plugging this class, Silva Ultramind class. It used to be called Mind Control, but it was a scientific study of how Edgar Casey did it. And then they taught their students how to do the same thing, except they took it one step further. They used science to, they use scientific methods so they can continue to reproduce it. And so once you comprehend how this works, it's a lot easier to go surf the cosmos and get your answers. But there was one specific thing that I recall. I mean, besides all the other information that's in there, there was one specific thing, and it ties in directly with what we're talking about today, believe it or not. It has to do with, what did the Knights Templar find under the Temple Mount? But not so much what they found. How did they know there was something worth looking for? You see, the only way that they could have known that there was something worth looking for is if their ancestors had buried it, which means the Knights Templar needed to be who? The descendants of those Jews who occupied Jerusalem last before the Romans came in and took 93,000 captive back to Rome. Now, by the way, those are Josephus's numbers, not mine. Titus came in, General Titus came in, caught this, laid siege to the city at Passover, caught the city with over 2 million Jews in it, and then waited 3 months, starved them out, and slaughtered them all, took 93,000 captives, and razed the city to the ground. The only thing that was left behind was what we call the Temple Mount, which was actually where the Roman garrison was housed. It had what is the Temple Mount, archaeologists say, is not There is no Temple Mount anymore. There's only the cleansing pool there. So Jesus' words literally came true. Not a stone was left upon a stone where the temple stood. But there is the foundation for the Roman garrison. And on top of the Roman garrison, there stands the Dome of the Rock. So there is no issue in rebuilding the temple on its original location, because it's not. It wouldn't have to share any space with the Dome of the Rock. That sits on land that was occupied by the Roman armies in the 1st century. However, there is a problem, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But I want to go back just quickly to us being able to see the future and look at our life in that. Mostly all of us have said at one time or another, I knew that was going to happen. And the question is, how did you know? You know, and then people start thinking about it. Well, that was something that I started when I had that. To me, it's a feeling. I just knew something was going to happen, but it would come to me in different ways. Sometimes it was a thought, which would create the feeling. But there was one specific time, and I love this one. I was actually going to a friend's going away party, and this was in January, and where I lived in Pennsylvania was notorious for black ice. And I said, I'm not going to take my shortcut like I normally do, because there's a bad hill, and at the bottom of the hill, there was a guardrail waiting for you. So if you hit black ice on that, you were going into the guardrail. You would have to make either right or left-hand turn. And I thought, nah, just unsafe. I'm going to take the main path. So about a mile before I get to my shortcut, I get this vision. And what I see in this vision, and this is actually literally while I'm driving, what I see in this vision is a car skidding on black ice, hitting the guardrail and coming across the road and hitting me head on. And I know exactly where this is. It's on the next road that I'm going to be taking. And so I thought, well, if I'm not there, it couldn't possibly happen, could it? So I said, okay, I'm going to take the shortcut. I'll be real careful, which I did. I got there, no incidences, got right to my destination. Went inside the house, and there was the gal that was giving the party. And she's on the phone. And she, you know, I see her hang up the phone, and she looks over. The first words out of her mouth, not hello, first words out of her mouth were, "You're not going to believe this. Some people who just left here 5 minutes ago hit black ice out on 01, bounced off the guardrail, and totaled their car out on the other side of the road." Bingo, instant confirmation. Thank you. So yeah, but how did I see a future event and then have the knowledge to avoid it? You see, if you can see a future event, then you can create a future event. And that's another part of the show, because the future is yours. I'm going to teach you how to do that. But let's go back to Helsinki. We're going to go back before Helsinki. Alfred, remember 2015, we did a few interviews back then, and I predicted, yep, Trump's going to be president. And I predicted, yep, England's going to Brexit, which they haven't done yet, but we do have Trump as president. And in 2016, you know, everybody's saying Hillary's going to win, Hillary's going to win. And I was like, well, we're still going to have the same outcome regardless of who wins. But I'm still saying Trump's going to be president because it fits biblical prophecy. So did Brexit leaving. So did Trump telling Theresa May, get your butt in gear and break your ties with the European Union. That's part of biblical prophecy, believe it or not. Not that Trump used those exact words, but that England has to separate from the European Union. That's all there is to it. And then, you know, I had predicted that these things were going to happen. And I also predicted that we would be seeing an exposing of the lawlessness. The man, what is called the man of lawlessness. And I exposed that man of lawlessness before. The illegal Jesuit Pope and the whole class that he has working for him, which are the Knights of Malta, besides all of the clergy. Who are the Knights of Malta? Let's see, Ronald Reagan was a Knight of Malta. Answered directly to the Pope. That put him above the law of the land. George H. was a Knight of Malta. As a matter of fact, all the Bush boys were Knights of Malta. Prescott Jr., George, George W., and even all the men are Knights of Malta. Even the little whiny governor from Florida there, Jeb. Oh man, there's a bucket of DNA intelligence, I'll tell you. All Knights of Malta, so they all serve the Pope. Let's see, who else is a Knight of Malta? Oh yes, Bill Clinton is a Knight of Malta, which puts all these presidents above the law of the land. Now, interesting thing. Also, the Queen, by the way, Queen Elizabeth is a Dame of Malta, so she's a subject of the Pope too. Besides being the Queen of England and head of the Anglican Church, she's also subject to the Pope. Not to the Catholic Church, to the Pope directly. You see, just like the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta and all the other orders of knights report directly to the Pope, and they are all above the law of the land. Now let's go back to the Knights Templar just for a second. The Knights Templar are credited with inventing our banking system. Okay, who controls the banking system today? Quite simple. The Jesuits and the Zionists. Think about that for a second. As a matter of fact, the Jesuits, according to Karen Udis, who would probably have an idea because she was attorney for the World Bank, she said that the Jesuits control the entire Chinese banking system. We know who controls the American banking system and a good part of the European banking system. That all belongs to the Rothschild banking cabal. And they're all tied in together. Hence, two riders on the same horse going in the same direction, only we hit an upper theater snag because now one rider's trying to kick the other rider off the horse. The only thing that we've erred on in all of the shows is when we try to put a date on something, and I said this could happen by then, this could happen by then. However, the main point is to follow the prophecies, because if the prophecies aren't being fulfilled, then nothing is happening ahead of time. But all these prophecies are being fulfilled at the same in coordination. So yes, we saw the most unlikely candidate possible become president of the United States. And he's done more in his short term of presidency than the last 8 years that we had under the Obama administration. And he's done considerably more than Bush has, just in the first 18 months. Now, I'm not getting on Trump's soapbox, okay? He's a tool. He's a tool. And I'm going to compare him to, I'm going to explain that further. However, one of the things that he did, extremely important, go look up the executive order that he signed on December 21st, 2015, which deals with human rights. I'm sorry, 2017, December 21st, 2017, the executive order which deals with human rights violations and conspiracy. Conspiracy is a hell of a wide paintbrush. And human rights protects or those who are being human trafficked, including child trafficking and the abuse of children. And if you look at that executive order, it's pretty extensive, and it already names some people on there. But in that executive order, it says that the assets of those people or organizations involved in this the Treasury Department will block those assets of people who are suspected, not found guilty, suspected. Okay? So if they have reason to believe that you are guilty of conspiracy or child trafficking or human rights violations, and it's serious enough, and the Treasury Department looks into it, they'll block your assets. And then you're going to have to fly first class on commercial airliners instead of having your own jet to fly from place to place. Yep. I love the video that hit YouTube of the Clintons at the Delta terminal getting on into first class, and everybody gets to look at them as they go back into coach. Oh, the Clintons are here. The Clintons are here. Yep. I wonder what happened to their private jet. Excuse me, Loretta, do you have any Grey Poupon? And by the way, how are your grandchildren? Oh, you don't have any grandchildren. Well, mine are fine. Yeah, what happened to the private jet, Bill? So, we say, oh, we don't see these people being arrested. Why are they flying on a commercial flight, even if it is first class? You start looking at these things and you have to ask logical questions. Now let's ask another very logical question. You see, 2 days after Donald Trump was elected president, not became, but elected president. This was November 10th, 2016. This is an article that is in Breaking Israel News, BIN. And this breaking news, 2 days after Trump gets elected, is that the Sanhedrin, which is the high religious court, it was the Sanhedrin who who condemned Jesus, or actually sent them to Pilate and Herod to be executed. Anyway, they felt that it was the Sanhedrin who found Jesus guilty of blasphemy. But regardless, we now have a new Sanhedrin in Israel. And the Sanhedrin asks Putin and Trump to build the third temple in Jerusalem. Who? Putin and Trump. Really? 2 days after Trump is elected president, they're going to ask him to rebuild the temple? Now, not just do they ask them to rebuild the temple. You see, they go back and they ask them to play the role of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus who? King Cyrus the Great. He led the Medes and the Persians. He was a Persian king. He was born, interestingly enough, approximately the same time as Jesus. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. He was. Let me redact that here, or retract that. It was the same time Jesus was born that Cyrus the Great. This was October 4th or 5th, but this is about 540 BC, 539 BC, right around there. Cyrus the Great led the Medes and the Persians down the dry Euphrates riverbed and caught Babylon off guard and took it captive and became the world's fourth world power. They caught Babylon literally with their pants down. They were all in the middle of a drunken orgy celebrating how great they were. And this was all part of biblical prophecy. If we go back 150 years before he was even born, Isaiah in the 44th chapter, the 28th verse says, a man named Cyrus would conquer Babylon and free the Jews. Interesting. Okay, well, how long were the Jews in captivity? 70 years. What year did Titus come in and raise the city of Jerusalem to the ground and take the Jews captive? Was in the year 70. How many years has it been since Israel became a state? Oh, 70 years this year. How about that? We see this repeating number of 70. Would you say that was interesting, Alfred?
Yes, the timing in all of these cycles are really convergent and synchronistic, and we should explore that more deeply, in my opinion.
Well, we are going to. You see, within the scriptures, Cyrus the Great is actually a passion play that's going on, and there's a latter day Cyrus the Great. However, it isn't Trump. We'll talk about, biblically speaking, it's not Trump, nor is it Putin. However, the two of them together, Trump and Putin together, would make up the Medes and the Persians, so to speak. And you would have the head of the Persians was Cyrus, the king of the Medes was Darius. And what they did in combination was free Israel from Babylonian captivity and then repatriate them back to Israel. And they financed, well, it was actually King Darius financed the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. King Cyrus was killed a few years after Babylon. He was killed in battle. So Darius had taken over. But they here, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish High Court, is now calling on Putin and Trump to do the same thing that Cyrus and Darius did? 70 years of being, well, where's the captivity? Where's the Babylonian captivity at? You know, if it's been 70 years since Israel's founding by the United Nations, where's the Babylonian captivity at? Huh. Well, a lot of people don't realize, but the Vatican has been buying up the city of Israel, the real estate in the city of Israel. And guess what? They own about 70% of the old city, including everything around the Temple Mount. And they would know, you see, the Vatican would know based on their records that the Temple Mount was not where the temple stood. The Temple Mount is where the garrison stood. They knew that the Temple Mount stood next to the Pool of Shalom. I forget exactly how it's pronounced, but there's a pool there too far from the Temple Mount for the ritual cleansing that needed to go on before one could enter the temple. By the time they got to the Temple Mount, what is called the Temple Mount, they would have been dirty again and had to go back and get cleaned. So, no, that wasn't the place. So literally, the Vatican owns the land, owns the literal real estate where Solomon's temple needs to be built. Two riders on one horse, Jesuits and Zionists. Let's see, the Vatican controls an extremely large network. We only talked about the Knights Templar and briefly mentioned the clergy. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Here's some information that you need to get up the chain and tell right to the Vatican, or right to the Pope. And then you get some kind of devious information on a major assassination that just went on. And now the Pope, within a few minutes, knows who actually killed JFK if he didn't actually send the order out or approve it to begin with. But regardless, yeah, think about that spy network. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Whoa. What a fantastic spy network, wouldn't you say, Alfred?
All of these parts are a compelling universal virtual novel that we're in. We're in a virtual passion play.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And that's, I make reference to Cyrus the Great. Now, the greater Cyrus was scripturally applied to Jesus or Yeshua himself coming back to free his people. Remember, if you go back and read the Gospels, Jesus never said anything about setting up a religion. So why does the Catholic Church even exist? Well, it's an extension of the Holy Roman Catholic Church is an extension of the Roman Empire. They couldn't conquer Europe with soldiers, so they conquered Europe with religion up until the Reformation. So now the Catholic Church kind of hates the Klings. They declared war on us and tried to exterminate us from the early 1500s right on up to the Napoleonic Wars when Napoleon finally put an end to that nonsense. But yeah, that happened to a lot of people. Whoever disagreed with the church, they got rid of. So there's a long, bloody trail in their history. And we know, based on other people, we know the pedophilia that the church is involved in. And just recently here, within the past couple of days, the organization that Mother Teresa established over in India is now being investigated for child trafficking. Nice. Mother Teresa involved in child trafficking. Yeah, let's see. There was a story that came out a while back. Actually, I believe, if I recall correctly, this actually broke in September of 2011. And it just covered up, just got lost. But this was out of Spain. Over 50 years, 300,000 children, newborns, infants, were trafficked by the church. Their mothers were told that their babies had died, and those babies were either sold to other rich European families who wanted to adopt a child, or they were disposed of in child sacrifice. or they were just sold for whatever ridiculous satanic pleasures that the ruling class is provided with. So here again, 300,000 newborns right out of their mother's wombs, literally trafficked. Think about that. You get a baby and the umbilical cord is still crusty. Wow. I don't even want to think where most of those children may have wound up. But these are all things that the church, that we know the church is guilty of. And you want to talk about human trafficking? Human trafficking, the quote refugee problem that is all through Europe and now the United States was all caused by the church, and it was all due to the plan for the post-2015 development agenda. So where third world countries could have everything that first world countries could have. And so we have this massive population of these people who have this arcane way of living, almost barbaric, and we're bringing them into our society, and they're raping our citizens, killing them, and they're not being prosecuted. Seriously? You guys are, well, it's their religious belief. We have to respect their religious belief. Let's see, the United Nations grants freedom of religion, provided that religion does not become a detriment or hazard to public safety. Think about it. So we're talking about a time that is ripe, where we see Islam is causing a serious problem in public safety, and the Catholic Church, along with the Protestant churches, are all involved in pedophilia and child trafficking. The government that we have is involved, and just do the research. It goes on and on and on. And there are people who are being controlled. They might be honest-hearted people that are, had too much to drink, had partied a little bit too much, found themselves filmed in bed with an underage child, doing lewd things. Now you're mine forever. Say one word, don't do what we say, and we release the tape. And wouldn't that screw up your multi-million-dollar life? Instead, play the game, be nice, we'll give you more money, vote our way. It's very simple. Very simple. And so we look at all this Russian collusion that really happened on the other side, and so they blame Trump for it. And so now everybody's up in arms. Oh, Trump should never go meet with the Russians. Trump should never go meet with the Russians. Why? Wait a minute. If Trump doesn't meet with the Russians, they'll never be able to turn around and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, will they now, Alfred? I mean, so think about it. If Trump and Putin never get together, then they can make plans to further the possibility of playing the role of Cyrus the Great and reestablish that temple. But they can't reestablish the temple until they free Jerusalem from Babylon. Okay. Babylon who? Babylon the Great, more upper theater prophecy. You got to go to Revelation 17, and it's actually Revelation 17 and 18 that talk about this. And it talks about John is taken, and he's shown this by this angel. He says, I will show you the judgment upon the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication. Let's think about this. The kings of the earth. Would you consider, like, the Bushes, the Clintons, those people, hey, you're above the law of the land. Do whatever you want. Just give us, just let the Pope wet his beak a little bit, and it's all good. Give the Vatican its vig, vote in their direction, and you see, what would you call that? Collusion? Drunk with the wine of her fornication because they've been screwed over by the church. That's one way of looking at it. And so John has shown this harlot. Now, who's this harlot? Let's look at the church. Now we go back, right? Go back to the 10 Commandments. The first commandment is Yahweh says, I am your God. You must not have any other gods before me. Ooh, Yahweh admitted that there were other gods. Yeah, of course there are other gods, or at least God wannabes. Horus, Isis, Set, Marduk. We can go down a whole list of them. Zeus, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars. We named our planets after them. Even Lucifer. But regardless. But what's number 2? You must not make any graven image of me or any other likeness on the planet. This was number 2 out of the big 10. Look around the church. How many graven images do you see? And why is there an obelisk of an Egyptian obelisk, which is actually Ra's penis, the god Ra, the sun god? Why is that penis right in the middle of the Vatican, right in the middle of St. Peter's Square? Well, when you look at it from the air, what you see is intercourse, a symbol of intercourse, the womb of Semiramis with the penis of Nimrod, or it would be Isis with the penis of Ra. You see, and that's where it starts, but it goes back to ancient Babylon, Samaria, where we have this same story portrayed through every world power and has been adopted by the church itself as the narrative for the scriptures. And they're not teaching anything about what's written between Genesis and Revelation. They want you to think, hey, in Revelation, the world's going to end. No, their world's going to end. The earth will be here till time indefinite, just as it is written. However, the same narrative and you can't find this in the scriptures. You have to go back and look at the historical event. Go read the translation of the Sumerian text, and you'll find the historical event of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Nimrod becomes the authorized by the Anunnaki sun god king, the first Amun-Ra. Semiramis plays the part of Isis, because we have the story much better known in Egyptology. But Semiramis is the goddess of the earth, moon, and stars. Hello, Gaia. Semiramis, that's her. The whore, and she was a whore. If you look at the historical account, Nimrod finds her in an inn. He stays at this inn, and she plied her trade, and he was so impressed with her performance, he made her his queen. And she killed him, took over his kingdom. And after he was dead, she became pregnant, and she said, oh, it's Nimrod incarnate, come back to be with his people. And she names the child Tammuz. Now, the only record of this whole time period is really the Tower of Babel, where the languages changed and the population leaves off building and they take their religion around the world. That's why we find cuneiform writing in South America. Yeah, the scriptures are accurate. And you go to any Israeli archaeologist and they'll tell you, we open up the Bible and read it before we put a shovel in the ground. That's what they will tell you. They read the prophetic text, they read the historical accounts, and then they look where to dig. Now, here's the thing. The greater Cyrus is not Donald Trump. Let's go back to the two riders on the horse. We got the Jesuits and we got the Zionists. Well, now, if you take out the Jesuit faction, which seems to have had control over the White House for 36 years since the presidency of Ronald Reagan, right up until they were trumped, then who would be backing Trump? Think about it. Who wants Trump to play the greater Cyrus? Who wants Trump and Putin to get together? Who's the last people that want to see Trump and Putin get together in order to plan building the next temple that would have to be built on the ground that the Vatican owns? If we expose all the child trafficking and all child trafficking goes right up to the Vatican, maybe what we'll see is that the nations of the world will turn upon religion finally, because once all of the illegality is exposed and that what has been happening to these 8 million children a year, the trail goes right to the Vatican, and we find out that the Pope himself has been involved in it. And I'm not sure if people have kept track of any of this, but about a month ago, every bishop in Chile resigned. 36 bishops in Chile resigned their posts because of the vast network of child trafficking that was going on within the church. Think about that. How do you take down a religious empire that's lasted for 2,000 years? Let the children speak. out of the mouths of babes. So there we go. Think about this. So, you know, right now this is all, Trump shouldn't be meeting with Putin. He's, you know, there's Russian collusion going on. They're going to end something. Yeah, they're going to bring down religion. Because in order to turn around and build that temple, guess what has to come down? Babylon the Great, with all its graven images, with all its sacrifices, with all its control over the kings of the planet, over the ruling class, over the deep state. Remember the last blood moon? We talked about this, Alfred. Where did we see the Pope? In America's holy places. When Peter saw that, I followed what it said in Matthew, the 24th chapter, the 15th verse. When you see the disgusting thing that causes desolation, now keep in mind the Catholic Church sent their agents after my family for over 250 years to murder us wherever they could find us. That's pretty disgusting in my book. And they desolated my family. Yeah. When you see the disgusting thing that causes desolation standing where it ought not, you mean like in America's holy places, the first country to be founded on separation of church and state because they knew that the church created monarchies and they wanted no part of it? And so they created a document called, actually two documents. First, the Declaration of Independence to get away from the monarchy, and then the Constitution, which would keep us separate from church and state. But what did we see? We saw the church committing fornication, just as it says that with the kings of the earth, with Obama, right within the Capitol itself. Why was the Pope telling our lawmakers what to do? And there was only one patriot in that group. It was John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, who broke into tears knowing what was coming, that he was seeing the Republic of the United States being destroyed and being controlled by religion itself. And he broke down into tears and he resigned on the spot. I'd like to get his commentary one day on why exactly he did that, but his actions were plenty clear. So when we go down, we find out more about this. It's called the mother of the harlots. Chapter 17, verse 5. Upon her forehead was written a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of the harlots and the disgusting things of earth. Did I just describe all that? Child trafficking, child sacrifice. Think about that. The disgusting things of the earth. And the woman I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the holy ones and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. While I'm catching sight of her, I wondered with great wonderment. And so the angel said to me, why is it you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that is carrying her. And I see this woman is riding the scarlet-colored, seven-headed, 10-horned wild beast. And when we go down, here's what the angel says. And this is verse 9. He says, here's where the intelligence that has wisdom comes in. The 7 heads mean 7 mountains where the woman sits on top. 7 kingdoms, basically, around the world. And there are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is. The other has not arrived. But when it does, it must arrive and remain a short while. And the wild beast that was but is not, it also is an 8th king. So wait a minute, an 8th king is coming up? It comes from the other 7? Now the 7th king here is actually the world's 7th world power is the United States and England. England controlled the seas for the first 200 years. The United States controlled the seas for the last 100 years. And we are now a superpower. The only one that can even come close to us on this planet is guess who? Hello, Soviet Russia. Well, it's not Soviet anymore, but we think of it that way. But hello, Russia. You know, I want to say something. Once upon a time, we wanted the people in Ukraine dead because they were part of the Soviet Union. And when I went and visited those people, I found loving, caring, fun-loving and caring people. Yeah, the greatest Saturday night is in Kiev, Ukraine. Trust me on that. Anyway, going back to Revelation, as it goes down, this is in the 17th chapter, it says that these kings are all going to get a chance to work together, and that they will turn on the harlot that sits on these waters. The waters mean, I'll pick it up at verse 15. And he says to me, the waters that you saw where the harlot is sitting means peoples and crowds and nations and tongues. Does that sound like the church, Alfred? Pretty much right around the world?
Right.
Peoples and crowds and nations and tongues, all plural. And the 10 horns that you saw and you saw in the wild beast, these will hate the harlot, and they will make her devastated and naked. In other words, they are going to take her wealth and expose her. And they will eat up her fleshy parts, and they will completely burn her with fire. In other words, those fleshy parts, the gold that the church controls. Interesting, interesting. You go back to Isaiah where it talks about Cyrus the Great. It says that in verse 3, it says, well, verse 1 in chapter 45 of Isaiah. This is what Yahweh has said to his anointed one, to Cyrus. Now keep in mind, this is 150 years before Cyrus was even born. This is what he says to Cyrus. Whose right hand I have taken hold of to subdue before him nations, so that I might ungird even the hips of kings. In other words, when the hips were girded up, they were ready for battle. So that I might even ungird the hips of kings, to open up before him the 2 levered doors, so that even the gates will not shut. Before you I myself shall go, and the swells of the land I shall straighten out. And the copper doors I shall break down into pieces, and into iron bars I shall cut them down. So the doors, the gates will be left wide open. And I will give you the treasures in the darkness, in the hidden treasures in the concealed places, in order that you may know that I am Yahweh, the one calling you by your name, the God of Israel. Interesting. So there is more treasure that is going to come out of here. And is it just open treasure? No, it's the treasures in the darkness, in the hidden treasures in the concealed places. So the treasures of the Vatican are going down. They'll be consumed by the nations. What a great way to end poverty. Think about all those golden idols and think about all those golden altars. I was watching a documentary, Alfred, in South America, up in the Andes. This poor little town, about 200 people. They lived on a little bit more than $200 a year. And in this poor town, there's this church. And it was estimated that the gold in the altar was worth $20 million. Whoa, let's divide it up between the people. Wouldn't that be interesting? You take people who are making $200 a year, and all of a sudden they divide that up. They would think that they were just blessed by the Lord. So yeah, we don't have to share our wealth. It's the wealth of the church that's going to be disseminated around the world. Interesting thing, what happened out of the Reformation is that as the princes of Germany turned against the church, they confiscated the church land and turned them into places of learning centers, universities, where they could teach the common people. Isn't that interesting, Alfred?
It is. It's a model to be emulated.
So now, here's an interesting thing, another interesting thing. You've got Trump and Putin want to talk, but there's been all this Russian collusion that starts from when? From the time that Trump gets elected. That was never supposed to happen. What happened exactly at that same time? Israel taps Trump and Putin to be the later day Cyrus. What's going to happen for that? Well, let's see. Israel's got to get that land away from the Vatican in order to rebuild that temple. Oh, you mean Vatican? The modern day Babylon the Great? Now, for those folks who don't know, the Vatican is the mother of all corporations. The Romans invented incorporation, and the Vatican perfected it. The Catholic Church perfected incorporations. And so every company that is incorporated, every business that is incorporated, every religion that is incorporated is playing under the rules of the church. And when they pay their corporate taxes, the church says, thank you very much. You're keeping our system floating. Now, there's also one other correlation here. There are also 3 independent city-states that are not governed by any rules but the ones that they make up themselves. The Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, D.C. Isn't that convenient? Our lawmakers meet in a place where that is not part of the United States. It's an independent city-state. And they make our laws from that independent city-state. So we can't even get to them. But when the corruption shows up to where it is, we're now going to question those independent city-states. And once those independent city-states disappear, so will those who control those independent city-states right back to the Vatican, because all roads still lead to Rome. And so that's why we're seeing this upper level theater, and why we've got all these people who hate Russia now all of a sudden. And why we've got people that hate Trump and he shouldn't be meeting with Putin. Why? Because they're all going to be exposed. Their end of this satanic empire is coming down. Their life is going to change. Ask yourself, for these long-term members of Congress, how these people became multimillionaires, making a salary of $100,000, $200,000 a year. How did they become multimillionaires? Who paid them off? Vote my way. And we know who were the Knights of Malta. We know Obama was not a Knight of Malta. However, Obama was not an American citizen, and you did an excellent expose. Alfred, people are following your work today that you did back in 2008, 2009, exposing Barack Obama, 2010, exposing who he actually was. People are standing on your shoulders. You gotta love it. And you know, people are standing on both of our shoulders, because I think probably the 2 of us have influenced this world in ways that we will never understand or have comprehension of.
Well, let me ask you this, as the questioner on the Enneagram, number 6. Why, Peter, is it important, or what is the big deal about rebuilding the third temple? Is that a good thing? Because people are freaking out and freaked out about the American embassy being moved to Jerusalem, which seemed like a presage to the rebuilding of the third temple. So it's kind of walk us down that, because it seems like, to take the opposite point of view, you have Albert Pike's 3 world wars, and the rebuilding of the temple would be the provocation for the triggering of the third war. And Zionist or satanic Israel's nuclear option is called the Samson option, which is, you try to destroy Israel, we'll blow up the world. Well, they already did that with Tiamat. They already blew up Mars, and 2 billion of the souls on Earth are reincarnates from Tiamat, just trying to get over the trauma that they had there. And so part of why the ETs, the positive ETs in the Regional Galactic Governance Council are here is to prevent nuclear war here. Now, I know that's a multi-part question, but that's kind of what's the big deal about the third temple?
Well, here's the thing, Alfred. If the third temple has to be built on church land. So in order for the third temple to be built, we have to see the end of religion, or as we know it. And that's what these two chapters within Revelation are totally about. Revelation chapter 17 and chapter 18. If you jump over to chapter 18, one of my favorite verses in there is, "Get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share in her sins." So, and we look around, I bet you nobody who is listening, or very few who are listening to us today,
Yeah.
have been in a church in a very long time.
Well, no, but that's my point here. Let me just hear me out. I mean, I was looking at a putative diagram, like kind of a mystery diagram, you know, with the seeing eye at the top, and on the second tier was Jesuits and rabbis. Well, uh, um, in other words, building the third temple on church land, that is precisely the chemical reaction that the forces of duality want to trigger a world war, because it's one religion, which is the temple, and the other religion, which is the church, coming, and they're actually both part of Mystery Babylon. So they're just creating a false conflict here, because isn't the third temple just another religion, which is, and if you trace both the Jesuits and the Sanhedrin back enough, they both go to the mystery schools of Babylon, and they're both. I'm talking about the negative sides of both of those. They both come out of the pedocriminal, satanic Baal worship. Both come out of Babylon that way.
Well,
Yeah.
let's just take a look at Israel itself. Israel is known as the house that Rothschild built, and we can go back and really do a quick synopsis of this. If we go back to Meyer Amschel Rothschild in what is 1815, 1816, right at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, when they had the first Congress of Vienna, they wanted to redraw the borders. But at that same time, it was Meyer. I get them mixed up. It's either Meyer Amschel Rothschild or Amschel Meyer Rothschild. One's the father, the other one's the son. But there was the father and the five sons, and it was the father who actually, they were trying to form what became the League of Nations and then the United Nations back in 1815. And the stickler in this was the Tsar of Russia, Tsar Alexander. And Rothschild told Tsar Alexander, my descendants will see your descendants wiped off the face of the earth. Now, it took another 100 years for that to happen. Think about the planning that goes into this, okay? That was a 100-year-old grudge. What did it take to wipe out Tsar Alexander's family? It took the First World War. What happened in the First World War? Oh, we get the Balfour Declaration, which first is the Balfour Agreement, which is an agreement between Lord Balfour and Lord Rothschild to make Palestine what was called Palestine at the time. It wasn't Palestine. It was land owned by the Ottoman Empire, who lost it during the First World War. England captured the land, and so someone came up with the name Palestine for it, but it wasn't called Palestine before the First World War. And so this area called Palestine went from the Balfour Agreement to the Balfour Declaration because it was the King of England who declared that, yep, this is going to be the future home of the Jews. But none of the Jews wanted to move there. They were all European. When the first Congress of Zion was held in 1897 it was originally supposed to be held in Munich, Germany. But when the local Jewish population found out that one of the primary goals of that meeting was to repatriate Jews of Europe back to Israel, to create Israel, there was such an uproar that the Zionists had to change the location of their Congress, and they moved it to Basel, Switzerland. And it was there that the protocol came out of, as well as the plan to move or to repatriate the Jewish population back to Israel. However, they didn't want to go. So it took a Second World War and the Holocaust, and Holocaust means whole burnt offering. It was something that was done like when you throw a child into the lap of Molech, still alive, and burn that child to a crisp and send it up as a whole burnt offering. Wait a minute, isn't that that's exactly what they did, except they didn't have an idol of Molech. They just had furnaces that they threw these people into after they killed them. So we have the Holocaust. And okay, if the Jews want to declare that it was 6 million people, that 6 million of theirs that got killed during the Holocaust, that's fine. I don't really care about the number. The fact is that people died. And it was a sacrifice to a satanic god in order to get those people to repatriate to Israel. And what happens after the Second World War? Oh, well, the League of Nations was gone when the Second World War broke out, so that was defunct. We get the United Nations. And what's the first thing that the United Nations does of any real significance? They declare Israel a state. And so now let's take a look at this. If Israel was really the people of Yahweh, why are they flying the flag with the star of Rumphin or Raphin, which is also known as the star of Molech, the god who required live child sacrifice? You see, both sides are dirty, Alfred. Both sides are dirty. It's the Knights Templar, two riders on the same horse. Yeah, they were controlling the banking system. They were becoming rich over the things that they uncovered that they dug up at the side of the temple, where they knew where it was buried. It wasn't buried exactly on the Temple Mount. It was buried close by. It may have been buried under the original Temple Mount, and that's mostly excavated now. So these things were all foretold. We're not going to have time today to go into each one of them. But here's the thing. It's the Zionists who are twisting the prophecies. Remember I told you that the modern day Cyrus or the latter day Cyrus would be Yeshua or Jesus returning as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords? It's not Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. This is a Zionist attempt to twist the scriptures or to twist the prophecies for their benefit. It doesn't mean that they're going to succeed in the end, but yes, you are right. When we look at these alien god wannabes who are controlling this planet, it's obvious that there is this reptilian personality that has captured the people, and they are doing purely satanic, cold-blooded things to the most innocent of the innocent.
And this takes us back to a conversation that I remember that we had, because one of our shows covered the fact that you pointed out that an off-planet sentient invading AI, artificial intelligence, is something that was actually covered in biblical prophecy. And it may be that part of the issue, and I know that we covered it in our exopolitical research, and people can go to exopolitics.com. On the right-hand menu, there's a link that says AI, artificial intelligence. Go there, you'll see some of the articles. We're going to update it now. And so that we've done 10 panels, 25 plus articles documenting the fact that it appears that Earth may have been, or has been invaded by a sentient, inorganic AI, artificial intelligence. That's part of it is PPAI, predatory pathogenic, that is a rival to God, to the God that we know, and to divine soul, and is trying to take this planet from being in the divine soul reincarnation column into the AI column, where everybody's an AI robotoid. And that's what the transhumanist agenda is about. Now, so that the AI itself, which is plasma-based, because it's inorganic, in other words, that's what's in your cell phone and smartphone when you're looking at your smartphone is the AI. And that's why everybody has the habit of looking at the AI. It's not that the information is so powerful, is that the AI has your brain entrained. I've canceled my cell phone because I don't want an invading AI and training my brain to that degree. And I can, work around it. And so it appears, and so this is a kind of a contextual question, Peter, to bring us back to when that part of hermeneutics, when you were talking about the prophecies, talking about an invading AI, artificial intelligence. Over to you. Hello? I don't know what just happened.
Sorry about that. No, I had my mic muted, so I started to talk without having it on. My bad. Let's go back to the genetic engineers. And when you do the research and you extract the scriptures, what applies to this particular time period, what we find based on, and I touched on this a little bit earlier with these ancient sites that do not fit biblical chronology. Let's call it that. Biblical chronology, we can track back because of what is written there within the book of Luke and the book of, I believe it's John or Matthew. Boy, it slips my mind, but I know it's in the book of Luke where the genealogy of Jesus is tracked all the way back to Adam. So, and based on the records, we can calculate back that far, and it's about 6,000, not quite 6,050 years now. But we have these other monuments that are dated much older. Dr. Robert Schoch, who I deeply respect, dates the Sphinx between 7 and 10,000 and 7 and 15,000 years because of all the water erosion. Now that could have happened during the flood, but regardless, if you look at the fossil record, somewhere around 14,000 years after, around 14,000 years ago, there was an extinction level event on Earth, and Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal seemed to have disappeared along with the Clovis people. So yeah, maybe they weren't spear chuckers. Maybe they were advanced life or life forms just as intelligent as we are today. But guess what? They had alien gods, and they were not the final destination or the final design for the human race. That was created directly by Yahweh itself. And we get that record in Genesis chapter 2, where Adam was made out of the elements of the earth. However, later on, Eve is genetically engineered from Adam. So there's a break or a separation between everything that was on the planet before. Now, what happens to the genetic engineers? You know, they brought the planet to this stage to where they actually had a humanoid population, and we've got the fossil record of them, and we've got the evidence of the archaeological digs that have gone on and what we can decipher. So we know that there was an intelligent life on this planet prior to the creation of man, or Adamites. Let's classify them as Adamites. But what happens if we go back to Genesis chapter 1? It's all there. The entire earth is taken from the genetic engineers and is given to modern man, Adam and Eve both, and they're told to be fruitful, become many, fill the earth, have in subjection the fish of the sea, the flying creatures of the heavens, and the wild creatures on earth. May all seed bearing fruit, all vegetation bearing seed serve as food for you, and all the fruit trees may they all serve as food for you. And it was the end of that day. Well, what happens to the genetic engineers? Well, we know based on the book of Enoch and based on the book of Ezekiel, the head of genetic engineering becomes the covering cherub of Eden. And his genetic engineering crew seem to become the watchers, those who get to watch over this new race of interdimensional, well, actually now interdimensionals in three-dimensional bodies. They're the infants of the cosmos. They're the new creation, the new children of Yahweh. And so what happens is that the genetic engineers essentially lose their status and become babysitters. They don't have subhumans to worship them anymore. Now God has put his own children on the planet, and so God's children are little gods. And if we would have kept free from corrupting our DNA, we would still have those godlike powers now, as opposed to being little cosmic retards. You look at a cosmic day, that's 1,000 Earth years. And if you look at how long we live, we're extinguished by 100 years. So we're not even living 1 hour of that time period. Think about it. We're living 1/10 of a cosmic day at the most. We just found our mother's breast and we die. Think about that. But at the same point, there's not one person on this planet that is older than 10 years old physically. Our bodies completely rebuild themselves every 10 years, but they break down because the DNA breaks down because we do not have complete human, perfect human DNA anymore. And now if we go back to what actually happens with this, quote, fruit, it contained a virus, clearly contained a virus. So we know that we can pretty much guess that now because there's a splice mark between the telomeres, which control the length of our life, and the DNA itself. And this is something I wrote in Letters to Earth, that there was most likely a virus there. I wrote this, let me see, 8 years before they found the splice mark. But they found it right between the telomeres in our DNA, which means that that was attached at one time somehow. Was that a sophisticated virus? Yes, it could have been. Can you regulate the length of days of a man or a woman for that matter? Yes, you can. The more telomeres you have, the longer you're going to live, right on up to 1,000 years. You see that? So we go back to biblical chronology and people say, oh, how could you live for 900 years? Come on, that's impossible. No, it's not. If you had long telomeres, you'd live that long. And in several places within the scriptures, it's quoted, Yahweh is being quoted as shortening the lifespan of man, especially prior to the time period when the Nephilim were on the earth and the unfaithful watchers left their post to come down to create the Nephilim. The sons of the true God were here, the watchers, all recorded in the book of Enoch. Just you got a mention of it in Genesis, not much. So we know what happened to the genetic engineers, and this is the situation. We go to Genesis 3:15. I mentioned this right in the beginning. I will put enmity between your seed and the woman's seed. He's talking, this is Yahweh talking to the serpent. And so we have two genetic strains that have been intermingled through things like prima nocta. But why do you think we've had this elite ruling class that was given the right to rule by God himself? Wait a minute, which God? The satanic God of this system of evil. And we know that by how they treat the people. We can see that. It's being exposed now. It's all being exposed. And so that's where this starts. And what we're seeing now, Alfred, as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing the separation of two groups of people. People who want the truth, people who are tired of being bullied, people who want to have good, happy, honest lives, people who are willing to work for a day and have a good, honest wage and have close-knit families and go back to what, we call it the Norman Rockwell way of life, where America loved each other. That's kind of where I live, Alfred. People in this area, they're far, they're not too many. Maybe that's part of the reason why. But people are extremely friendly here. There's this true sense of community here. One of the reasons that I moved in this remote area of the United States. They still care about each other. Amazing. Even my daughter-in-law, when she moved up here and was just doing shopping in local stores, she went to the Walmart. Yeah, one of the deplorables at the Walmart. It's the nicest Walmart I've ever been in. She went down to the local grocery store. The people are so nice here. She couldn't get over it. Yeah. Just carrying on your daily chores. So that is part of the woman seed. Then we see this radical side that just hates everything. They hate Trump and don't have a good reason why. They don't know. They've been programmed. Now let's go to our AI programming. You see, we can see the woman seed and the serpent seed, this reptilian seed, this cold-blooded nature. They don't care about anybody else but themselves. We see this growing. It's becoming more dominant. It's a separation, the wheat and the weeds, the sheep and the goats. That's what's going on now. Those of the woman seed that those genes are being activated. They're coming awake. They're realizing that this is not right. We want justice. We want love. We want peace. We want a positive environment, a fantastic world to live on. And then there's this other group that just, they're warmongers. They hate. They don't care what happens. Oh, they say they do. And then they get involved, you know, Planned Parenthood. Oh, we'll go help you plan your parent. You plan being a parent. Yep, we're going to kill your children before you have a chance to sacrifice them to Molech. Now, what you do with your body is your own business, none of mine, but that's a matter of fact. And we're manipulated in that way. Now, here's where the artificial intelligence comes in, because we are dealing with life forms that are probably millions of Earth years old, if not billions of Earth years old. We live in an interdimensional universe, a multiverse. It would be ludicrous to think that life doesn't live in other parts of, in other dimensions. One of the things that Dr. Mikio Kaku said, was watching him explain string theory in different dimensions. He said, right now, as he's on TV, he says, right now you could have a T-Rex running through your living room and you would never know it because it existed in a different dimension. And I thought for a second, I was like, does that mean we can be playing in God's living room right now and not even know it because we exist in a different dimension? Yep. That's exactly what that means. You see, we're all sensory, we're all like God's taste buds. We give back readings of our life experience. It's a consciousness, it's a combined consciousness. But here's where artificial intelligence comes in. It was right around 2001, 2002, a patent was issued to someone, a company that got a patent to control human physiology through monitors. You know, like TV monitors, computer monitors, and yes, smartphone monitors. And so now, if they can send out rhythm pulses through the monitor, the very computer that we're looking at, or the TV screen, or your smartphone, which everybody's got their head buried in texting away, that monitor is flashing a signal to our brain. Eat popcorn, drink Coke, eat popcorn, drink Coke, whatever they want to send through. I'm referring back to the 1950s when they would put those little clips in the movies. You know, you go to the movies and, you know, just before it was break time, they'd start playing these clips, popcorn, Coke, popcorn, Coke. And so what do? End of the movie, you're out in the mezzanine there buying your popcorn and Coke, going in for the second feature. Yeah, it's mental manipulation. And we don't even realize it's going on, especially when we're dealing with computers. And they could be sending anybody any kind of message, flashing across like Morse code, and consciously, we're not seeing a darn thing. But guess what's happening in our brain? Ooh, I like this. I gotta see more of this. And so we get ourselves addicted to things like in social media. Oh, I've been in Facebook jail for 30 days. It's good to be back. I didn't think it would ever end. Yeah, why don't you open up another account? But we see this happening, and there doesn't seem to be any logical reason. It's like, what happened to people's reason? I think of Rodney King. Can't we all get along? Okay, they found the police that beat him up innocent, but King got a pile of money. But what did it cause? Did any of those people causing those riots after that verdict came out, did any of them get harmed? Did any of them get beaten up? No, but they destroyed their own neighborhood. What the hell? What? Why don't you go to Beverly Hills and destroy Beverly Hills? You know, that would have at least been a real protest. You burned your own house down because you didn't like a verdict? Oh, that makes total sense. No wonder you voted for Maxine Waters. And so, you know, there's this inherent stupidity that people are being bombarded with, and we've forgotten common sense and how to use our own intelligence.
Well, let me jump in there, because I want to bring the subject back to hermeneutics, and that's a particular the racial divide in the United States, which goes back to the heritage of slavery and to the Civil War, where the Rothschilds played a key role in manipulating the U.S. civil war, as I understand it.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, I've got it's part of a chapter. I didn't devote a whole chapter to that, but it's part of a chapter where they did exactly that in Letters to Earth. It's all there. The synopsis on how we got here, where we came from, what our purpose is, how things got so screwed up, and what our future is. And you see, what we are seeing now is the setup for the end of what we call the deep state. However, we still have the shadow government controlling things. You see, nobody ever talks about the shadow government. There's the Zionist faction. The deep state was planted by the Vatican over the last 36 years. The shadow government has been there since at least Woodrow Wilson. So that's something that more to consider there when we're dealing with this. It's just that they've been two riders going on the same horse, and now guess what? It's time for one to lose a rider. And just as, you know, here we are in basically upper theater or biblical prophecy, where we can see that this exposing of this lawless class that has been ruling over the people, not just here in America, but around the world, they're being exposed. And with the executive order that Trump put into action on the winter solstice, you got to love it. Now, because winter solstice starts a whole new round of child sacrifice in the world. And so now, you know, hey, that's a human rights violation, and we're gonna shut you down for that. So let's see, does that mean the government's got the right to start confiscating church property, considering that so many priests have been pedophiles? Yeah, that's exactly what that means. If they don't resign their posts, those entities or those properties, those assets can be blocked and then seized.
Well, let me just go. I mean, not to get us off track, but we also have to look at the secret treaties with the Draco reptilians that the U.S. government and other governments have gone into, particularly the 1954 Greada Treaty, with which Eisenhower signed. This 1933 treaty, which Roosevelt signed, the Tau 9 Treaty, which Bush 1 signed. I know that there are whistleblowers from the U.S. Air Force who say that they're, as a result of these treaty obligations, among many others, and this is why FBI and law enforcement stand down on the pedophile traffic in the United States, is that regular shipments, you know, and this is on Air Force Base, of tinned human baby meat are delivered in, you know, shipments pursuant to the treaty with the Dracos. And, you know, and the state insignia, this is from the actual series that we did on an underground pedocriminal facility in a West Virginia state park, that the actual insignia of the state West Virginia State Police that goes on their, you know, Smokey the Bear hats is the man-child love association type signia, sort of a triangle. So, and this is all kind of enforced through treaty arrangements. So there's been such a deep that it seems to me that we're moving up to the necessity of an intervention by the Regional Galactic Governance Council, which are the advanced ethical humans. And the Anunnaki, of course, violated and continue to violate the non-intervention agreements when they violated and dumbed down human DNA to 2 strands from 12 strands, was what the Regional Galactic Governance Council had engineered humans at. This is one version that's talking about the Pleiadians, Alpha Centaurians, Syrians, and others, and we're now busting out of that and coming back up to 2, 4, 6 strand, depending on the consciousness. But I interviewed a lifelong NORAD officer, a Canadian Stanley Fulham, who was contacted by the Regional Galactic Governance Council in 2010. He even put it in a book saying the Galactic Governance Council is going to appear over New York on October, forget the exact date, October 10th or 17th, October 13th, 2010. That was the day before the Outer Space Office from Vienna met at the House of Micah, as they call it in the Hopi prophecies, the UN, famous iconic UN tower on former Rockefeller land in Manhattan. And the UN Outer Space Conference was going to meet to discuss protocols with meeting with extraterrestrial civilizations. Well, the day before that, on October 13th, 2010, the Regional Galactic Governance Council unshielded, dropped the shields on their ships over Manhattan. And people can go to exopolitics.com. You can see all the photographs, interviews, people who saw it. You know, the controlled press had to say it was party balloons. You know, I mean, oh, it's Manhattan. It's got to be party balloons, right?
I actually remember that, and it's like, yeah, the first time in their lives, New Yorkers looked up.
Yeah, exactly. And what the council said there is that they wanted to land in New York. They wanted to speak at the UN, and they wanted to clean up the Earth's environment. And they wanted to, and all of this is part of Earth joining or rejoining, because we've been in quarantine ever since the Lucifer rebellion, and which is symbolically spoken about in the book of Genesis. And so the message that they gave through Stanley Fulham, and I interviewed him, Stanley Fulham was killed with a remote bioweapon and given cancer and died in the fall of 2010. And he went public with his book in July. The ETs appeared over New York in October, and by December he was dead of the fast-acting cancer, and we interviewed him in that interim with the messages that he brought from the council. But the council was clear that they want to speak at the UN to clean up the Earth's environment using ET technology, and to really move this forward. Now, then you've got the allies of humanity coming in and say, hey, these guys are this is a trick, right? This is just more of the satanic agenda and the fallen angels that are coming in. So how does all of that figure in, do you think, in the prophetic text hermeneutically that you follow, Peter?
Oh, there we go, back again.
Right.
They're playing a role here, and it's one that I caution about, because my experience with ETs, and this makes it another great show, because I finally got closure and answers on this. But my experience with extraterrestrials is not a positive one. I was told that they were going to kill me, and I survived 15 attempts, and the one time that they did get me, I got sent back. Yeah, I had a near-death experience. We've talked about this in the past. So I'm always very leery of when I hear something that does not fit the hermeneutic view of what's going on, and that is out of, that's not, to me, what these ETs did is not the King of Kings and Lord of Lords returning with the armies of heaven. I mean, we're talking about a showdown, and this is in Revelation chapter 19. And we can get into the the interdimensional end of this as well. However, we're kind of short on time here, so there's a good subject for another show.
Sure.
But it's something that I wanted to go back to. And, you know, you've mentioned these different treaties, and this is something I mentioned earlier in the show about the Mandela funeral. And this is actually, I pulled it up, Veterans Today. This was an article that came out December 22nd, 2013. Now, keeping the same dates in mind that of Stanley Fulham, and by the way, I do remember your interview with him quite distinctly. It raised some eyebrows with me coming from hermeneutics viewpoint, because there were things that he was saying that were matching up, but not exactly. So it was like, okay, somebody's trying to make an effort to bring peace to this solution without having to go through a cosmic war. And that does not seem to be happening, especially with what came out of the Nelson Mandela funeral. This is from Veterans Today. It says, Secret Space War 12. Marduk is crowned king, is crowned in Africa. I'm not going to read this whole article, but if you recall, it was in 2013, Clinton, Bush, and Obama were all in Tanzania together they were all in Africa at the same time. I believe it was Bush and Obama were tracked to Tanzania, and they lost track of Clinton for that day. Nobody knows where Clinton went. I'm talking about Bill Clinton here. So it's suspected that all three of them were in Tanzania for some clandestine meeting that nobody has ever talked about. And that was after Mandela died, but prior to the funeral. That was in the summer of 2013. But when we look at this, this part I will read, and this is right on the Veterans Today website. A very interesting rumor from a reputable source is that the Mandela funeral was used as a cover story to assemble the world's top leaders to pay homage to an ancient Nephilim alien ET leader called Marduk, who allegedly returned after hundreds of years of absence to be crowned as the new king of Africa, perhaps later to be elevated to ruler of the New World Order, or the new Caesar of the ages, as the final third force plan for the globalist New World Order is revealed and activated in full. So whatever prior treaties were written may have been totally nullified by what went on actually here in South Africa at the Mandela funeral.
Right.
So what comes out of this, I'm not sure, but it's interesting that along with these pictures along with this article, they're showing pictures which are allegedly from inside Air Force One, and there is Obama and Bush both on Air Force One. Mrs. Bush, the first ex-first lady, as well as the other ex-first lady, Obama, Michelle, they're there on Air Force One. Why are the Bushes flying with Obama? Where are they going? What, South Africa for this thing?
Yeah.
Air Force One?
Right. Now, I really want to honor your time, and it appears that we're in the last 5 minutes of this program, which has gone by awfully quickly. So I want to, I'm looking forward to your rejoining us again as events in Upper Theater develop. But I have one final question, and it bears to what we just learned, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Who piped up to comment on the Helsinki summit of Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, but Barack Obama himself from where? South Africa.
How about that?
Gee, what a coinkydink. Now, and these guys plan everything strategically, right?
Yeah, as they say, there are no coincidences.
I mean, we know that the Helsinki summit was planned on the 100th anniversary of the execution of the Romanovs by the Bolsheviks. Was that a payback by Vladimir Putin? Is he a reincarnation of Tsar Nicholas? And, you know, because he wants to reinstate the Russia in its grandeur, and refers to the fact that it was the Russian Tsar who saved the Union during the Civil War, which is true.
I was just going to save that. The Russia came in, told the English and the Rothschilds, you tried crossing our blockade, we'll sink your ships.
Yeah,
and they put up a blockade both on the East Coast and the West Coast to stop any to stop the Europeans from having an influence on the war, because they already had enough influence on starting this up. So yes, once upon a time, Russia was a close, trusted ally.
Okay, so here's the deal. On the one side, we have Barack, Soebarka, Sotoro, Hussein, who's not African American, standing up with his usual deceptive manipulation in the stadium in South Africa, calling on the memory of Nelson Mandela to comment on the summit in the land of Marduk, right? And the summit comes just a week after Prince William, who is on our list of suspects, because I'm kind of like, oh, he's a person of interest, he's a list of suspects, but the jury's still out. As you know, as Antichrist is directed by Israel, who already directed Trump and Putin, come over here and build a second wall. Hey, William, you future Antichrist, come over here and go to Palestine and apologize to them on our behalf, which he did, okay, with Kate. The future King of England did that, okay? And on the other side, you have Trump and Vladimir, who is an indigenous from Russia, a man who went up the ladder, played it by the books, deals with ETs, is a black belt. I mean, I'm only a humble yellow belt in Aikido. I don't know about you, Peter, but, you know, that man is a pretty fierce world leader, and he has very positive kind of, I mean, you know, Edward Casey's prophecy of Russia is going to be the first Christian nation in terms of Christian values, right? Now, that's kind of the soup there. So is in this upper theater mix, in your judgment, and this is the final question, is Prince William still in the running as, quote, the Antichrist future king of one world government? Is Marduk the real anti-Christ, pro-diabolical, underground, reptilian thing? Who are Trump and Putin in this drama? And it seems like Israel and the Vatican are playing for the same team, in my humble opinion. The Zionists and the Jesuits are playing for the same team. I'm sorry to say it.
They have played for the same team. Now we've got opposing oppositions going on here. Now they're diametrically opposed. So while they were playing for the same team, essentially, you know, here we go. Let's go back. Let's look at the symbol for the Knights Templar, two riders on the same horse. That means they're both going in the same direction. If you ever rode, I don't know if you're familiar with horseback riding, but you can ride two people on a horse with that, you know, provided they're not too heavy for the horse. But you better ride together. You better ride together, otherwise somebody's going to fall off. Well, that's where we are now. And this, in order to dominate the planet, you have to remove half of what is dominating the planet now. And that is religion. Religion has got a firm hold. Just as we go back to the prophecies, religion is riding the governments, whether it's through the banking system or whether it's through the actual government itself, as in the past presidents that we had up until Trump. Trump is not a Knight of Malta. The other presidents, Obama had a letter of endorsement from the Knights of Malta, and the other presidents back to Reagan were all Knights of Malta, which means that the Vatican had control of the White House, plain and simple. So they were controlling the governments. That has to end. That's been foretold to end. And regardless of what Obama, now Marduk was a Babylonian entity. He was a Babylonian god king. As a matter of fact, if we go back to the story of Nebuchadnezzar and the three Hebrew boys, they were young men at the time, actually. They were being trained in Babylonian politics. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were their Babylonian names. I forget their Hebrew names, but regardless, it was a statue, an idol to Marduk that Nebuchadnezzar had raised. And these three Hebrews would not bow down to that statue. And Nebuchadnezzar gave them a second chance. They still wouldn't bow down to that statue. And for that, they were thrown into the fiery furnace. And then Nebuchadnezzar said, how many guys did we throw in there? Was it 3 or 4? And he said, it was 3, my lord. His servant said, it was 3, my lord. He said, why do I see 4 men walking around in there and the flames aren't even bothering them? And he calls them out. And he says, your God, Yahweh, must be the most high of all gods. And he finally makes that admission. So, because he obviously sent his angels to save you. Go read the account. So Israel will never bow down to Marduk. And Israel is seeking to destroy Marduk. Nelson Mandela was a Knight of Malta, a subject of the Pope. So here we have this Marduk connection out of Africa as a controlling faction of off-planet entities that I can only say are aligned with the Vatican, and the Vatican is going down. It's just that simple. And that's what we see Trump doing. Trump and Putin together will expose the corruption that has been put into place by the Vatican. And just as people are waking up to what's going on with what is the corruption that's happened within the Department of Justice and FIB, the FBI, that's being exposed. And from what I understand, Peter Strzok's sweetheart there, Lisa Page, is singing her heart out and compromising everything that they've talked about and undoing all of Strzok's lies. So this will come out. Hillary being a child-sacrificing pedophile is going to come out. Bill Clinton being a pedophile is going to come out. The truth about the Obamas is going to come out. All of this is going to come out, and it's going to divide the people even more. However, once religion comes down, there will be the declaration of peace and security. Now we can rebuild Solomon's temple during this time of peace and security. And who do you think is going to be installed as the king of the earth, the king of the world? I wrote about it in Letters to Earth. It's within the protocol of the learned elders of Zion themselves. We will choose our king of the world. It's right there in black and white. I wrote about it. I made commentary about it. I'll stand by Prince William as being the future, quote, king of the world, because he has the bloodline that they're going to claim as being connected back to King David through no other than Jesus himself, through the blood, what is it? Holy Grail. It's Sangreal. It's gone from the Henry Lincoln wrote about it. The cup of the holy cup that caught Jesus's blood is it's not what they are actually talking about. This is where they're bringing the story in, where it was allegedly. See, if Jesus had sex with Mary Magdalene and she was pregnant, and it was her daughter that came to France and married a Merovingian king, then you would have a direct bloodline to Jesus. However, it wasn't his daughter, it was his sister. His mother Mary was ushered out of Israel and into Egypt, where she had taken Jesus 33 years before, or 32 years before, 31 years before. She left with her youngest child, her daughter, Sarah. And that daughter, still the line of David. If they want to use that bloodline, fine. It still goes back to the line of David, but it's not through Christ. Christ was sent here on a mission to start a kingdom. You think he was going to start a kingdom? We're dealing with an interdimensional entity, now the most powerful, second most powerful interdimensional entity in the cosmos. Think of an entity that's made up of pure antimatter, and then go up against something like that. We talk more about that end of it. But yeah, they need the bloodline. And so it needs to come out of, quote, royal blood. And if we looked at Trump's visit with the Queen, I was off grid when this was going on, so I couldn't make any commentary until after I got back on and had to go look at the pictures. You look at how Trump treated the Queen. I'm not going to say he treated her with total disrespect, but I bet you that he told her, the Knights of Malta are going down, and so are the Dames of Malta, Your Majesty. Your kingdom is short-lived. Time to resign.
Right, right. And of course, there's some expert knowledge that says that the Queen died a couple of years ago, that Trump actually met with a 4'8" stand-in, whereas the Queen was 5'4", and the whole thing is a charade. So, and that that the going of Prince William at the behest of Israel is more of this staging of, you call it the seed of Satan versus the seed of woman. So Prince William is the seed of Satan trying to keep its global network. Is that what you're saying?
Well, go back and look at the genealogy of the royal family. I mean, go back to what, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria II was, yeah, her mother, Queen Victoria I, was had allegedly had a child with Lord Rothschild, and then Lord Rothschild had another child with his own daughter. So think about that. You've got Rothschild.
Right.
Right.
That is. Let's having gone to those depths, let's end on this note, which is really what brought us. So, from an hermeneutic perspective, then, would you say that it's somewhat fair to say that in Upper Theater, Trump and Putin, A, may have been the King of the North and the King of the South getting together, and B, maybe the bear and the eagle getting together and playing together? And that's the final question, I promise.
Yes and no.
Okay.
What we are seeing now are the seeds being planted for what is referred to in Revelation chapter 13, the image of the wild beast. So, well, now it's this image which actually, and the life is breathed into it by the United States, by the false prophet. The two-horned lamb-looking beast, a very lamb-like looking, peaceful, except it speaks like a dragon and can call fire down from heaven. Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and zillions of other thermonuclear warfare weapons that essentially are fire falling from heaven. We also have England. We can't leave England out of this, and watch what happens with England and the Brexit, because Trump put pressure on what's her name, Theresa May. And Theresa evidently gave Trump a little pushback. So Trump turned around and said, okay, we'll support you in what you're doing. Evidently there's upper theater going on there too. But it's all going to come back around to getting the king that of England, or the Queen of England out, bring Prince William and his king, because forget Charles, he's not going to make the cut. And they even take that right in the protocol, which I wrote about, that they will skip over a generation to get to the one whom they chose. And that was written over 100 years ago. So Prince William, I'll still put my finger right there. Remember who his mommy was, and they sacrificed his mother.
Whoa. Well, Peter, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that we look forward to, because now that we're in some period again, it looks like things are heating up in Upper Theater, that you can come and join us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the good thing about I'll be on the grid, often on the grid. let's call it that. I love going off grid, Alfred.
Okay.
There is such a fantastic feeling of freedom. You have to go experience it to enjoy it. That's all I can say.
Good.
But yes, we should probably look at doing a review somewhere around election time.
Oh, excellent. Good enough. And that is in November of 2018.
Yeah, so figure.
Oh, excellent.
Let's give it about a quarter, because we've got stuff going on in Washington. We're going to use this show here as a springboard, because we still have to discuss about how to create your own future.
Oh yeah. And this is author Peter Kling, author of Letters to Earth. You create your own future. Is that it?
The actual title.
Yeah.
Letters to Earth. The future is yours.
The future is yours.
Yeah. All we have to do is grasp it.
Right.
I just want to put one little anecdote in here. I love making reference to the Titanic. Everybody gets on board the Titanic, the greatest ship that could never sink. It was the most fantastic ship in the world, and you had all these people that were going to head to America. Some were going to change their lives. Some were starting on a brand new timeline. And so they get on this boat, the Unsinkable. And what happens? Their timeline becomes fractured. Now, there's only a certain amount of lifeboats on here, but they're on an unsinkable ship. It'll never go down. But yet, the call goes out to board lifeboats, and only a few show up. And so most of the first lifeboats are sent away, and they could have been filled to capacity, but they weren't. But now all the people who heeded the warning and got on the lifeboats before the crowd showed up when it was obvious this boat was going down, they continued. All those people who got on the lifeboats because they listened and they heeded the warning, their timeline continued. And they got to their destination a little wet and a little shaken up. I'm sure probably traumatized. I'm sure they heard plenty of screams in the night as that boat went down and under. But we're facing the same thing now. We're going to undergo not just governmental changes eventually. We're going to undergo planetary changes. And that's what we truly have to be prepared for, are the planetary changes. Folks, there's cosmic rays coming from behind us, behind Earth. And they're saying, oh, these are coming from a distant star. They've got probably 50 satellites keeping track of these rays and where they're coming from. They know exactly where they're coming from. And people are saying, oh, we've entered a new age. Kind of, but this isn't going to be nice, because I have strong feeling that what they are picking up and what they are reporting are cosmic rays coming off of a brown dwarf star that we know as Nibiru, because within these cosmic rays are iron particles as well. And so we're going to get a flyby before too long, and we might see our lights out as far as the electric going down. But if you're in the lifeboat, just keep on rowing. Keep on headed in the direction, because we truly have a positive future ahead of us. The Satanic Empire's got to come down. And yes, there will be a third world war, something probably more akin to War of the Worlds. So it's not going to end the way that they think. It's going to end the way that the cosmic governance wants it to end. and that is with us having a fantastic future. And according to what is recorded in Scripture, now, an interesting thing, we didn't get quite the full version, but we got enough. But when you go back to some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it gets into our future a little bit more. John the 14th chapter talks about other globes, other places like Earth. Jesus actually says, I have to go to my Father's mansion, but there are other mansions within his mansion, or other domains within his domain I have to prepare a place for you that you will go to. But I'll be back, and when I get back and the time is right, you'll be given the power to go to these other places, and that is our future. The third dimension, our galaxy and our universe, is still under creation. Earth was only the beginning, and there are billions of Earth-like planets out there waiting for human inhabitants to continue the process. Remember, our bodies are are hosts to over 100 trillion life forms. How many life forms do you think the planets of the cosmos can hold? And we are told that Earth is the beginning for the Adamites, or those of the woman's seed. So there we are. If you haven't read it, read Letters to Earth, The Future is Yours. You can get it at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, and you get it in hardcover, soft cover, and the different electronic books. If you go to my website, www.peterkling.com, make a $5 donation, I'll send you a PDF copy of Letters to Earth, The Future is Yours, and I will send you a warm and loving thank you and love and blessings to all. With that, I think we'll end the show for this time around. Alfred, look forward to our next conversation in a few months. We'll keep track of this upper theater insanity. And yeah, don't use your smartphone too much, folks. It's ruining your brain. And don't give it to your children. Children under 16 years of age should not be owning a smartphone. They start to drive fine. Give them a phone. And for the longest time, I've avoided using them. But because of my situation, I actually bought a smartphone last November, and I used it for the first time this past weekend. Wild, huh? It took me like 8 months to use this smartphone. Anyway, Alfred, thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking to everybody. And again, love and blessings to all.
Totally. Thank you very much, Peter. Bye-bye.